All right, so I want to make a video updating everyone. I got to put the video out early today because I got a busy day ahead of me. So, um, getting right into it, Alberta had 40 new cases yesterday. That is down from 47. Again, tested a ton of people. We were at about 310,000 people. Yesterday we had it was 2 days ago, I guess. Yesterday, 317,000. So again, a little over 7,000 tests. You know, this is again, they continue to test more and more people. The science is continuing to advance on, the how fast you can test people, how fast you can get results, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of people are pointing out that the cases have gone up, and although that is true, again, we are testing more people. So the more people you test, the more cases you're going to discover. I have seen reports now that the case numbers are up a little bit in the States, but we knew that was going to happen. I mean, we knew it was going to happen at some point. My position has always been there's going to be a second wave no matter what. The point being is that there's no reason to keep the economy closed down. The only thing that I would even consider to close the economy and to close things down and to make people stay home is if the hospitals are going to be overwhelmed. That is the only consideration. And it's for the simple reason that the lockdowns have very little effect on the average person. The numbers are very clear. 95% of people dying from this are people that are seniors, over 65. And people who are over 65, the hardly any of them are still working. So regardless of whether or not we keep things shut down or not, it doesn't affect the seniors much, at if any at all, or a very small amount, at the most. So the point being is that the difference is very little. Like whether or not someone who's younger stays home or not barely affects the older people. I mean, a lot of them are in nursing homes. Most of them live at home. So the idea of keeping things closed again doesn't make much sense. There was going to be a second wave no matter what we did. Everybody knew that. The reasons to justify the lockdowns in the first place were always to not overwhelm the healthcare system. There was going to be a second wave at some point no matter what. Now, was it a little more than I thought? Again, it's still early to tell, but unless we go over consistently, let's say 50 cases a day, it's still not worth it. Now, the other thing to point out too is that the active cases, I believe, are 378. They're 379. So again, the active cases are staying pretty steady. The active cases are what is the big thing to worry about. The number of hospitalizations, the thing to worry about. I believe we're up a couple as far as hospitalizations go. And again, active cases pretty much the same. Um, Again, it's still Calgary's the area to worry about. Edmonton is going up, but it's still not that bad. I mean, we got 140 cases in Edmonton. You got 7 people in the hospital. 7 people in the hospital, not something we have to worry about. And the thing is that um, either way, the pro lockdown crowd is still the ones that deserve the most blame. The pro lockdown crowd is taking the slight uptick as, oh, see, we told you so. You guys were wrong all along. Well, no, that's not the case. Uh, the pro lockdown crowd are the ones that are justifying all the protests and rioting that's going on. So either the pro lockdown crowd is completely wrong. One, again, it has to be one of these two things. Either they're completely wrong about the lockdowns and that they don't work beyond a shadow of a doubt, or they want to get people killed because they support the protests and whatnot. And again, according to them, if you open your business, your small business, you're going to get people killed. So either the lockdowns don't work and they're admitting it by default, or the lockdowns do work and they're supporting a position that's getting people killed. Like again, it's one or the other. The If the anti-lockdown crowd had their way, we wouldn't be dealing this in the same way. We wouldn't be dealing this. I mean, because the anti-lockdown crowd, if we'd had their way, I mean, part of the reason why these protests are so bad, I believe, and I think it's pretty easy to bear out, it's just to what degree, is that people were sick and tired of not being able to work. People were sick and tired of being all cooped up. So again, the minute they got the opportunity to go out, they did it. And that's the problem. And the other thing to point out too is that if tens of thousands of people gathering in hundreds of cities across North America only leads to a small increase in cases, because in Edmonton it is a small increase. It is not that much of an increase. We're talking maybe 10 to 15 cases a day increase. That's not that much. Not only that, we've ramped up our testing capabilities, so it may only be like a 5 case a day increase, which is nothing when you think we got almost what 5 million, almost 5 million people in Alberta. So that is not a big uptake whatsoever. The only way to justify keeping things locked down any further is if we're having at least 100 new cases a day again, at least 100. And we're not even close to that yet. And the problem too is that we can't keep the lockdowns going forever. It's just not feasible. It is not feasible no matter how you cut it. So I've been saying all along, again, the government needs to, I mean, the problem is that the governments, even the Kenney government, the Ford government, I'm not just going to blame the Trudeau government. They deserve a lot of criticism, but the Kenney government, the Ford governments have handled this pretty poorly as well, like very poorly, at least in my opinion. So again, the big news is the stuff going on in Seattle, and this is a very good way of putting it, in that Benjamin Lockney, I don't know exactly how you say that on Twitter, he says, notably the first thing the left-wing Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone has done is establish strong borders to monitor and restrict entry according to their values. Now, again, these are the same people that are up in arms against Trump and all these people on the right that want to have borders and have a any form of immigration to where we can't just let everybody in, which is what the left wants. Anything other than just letting everybody all in is horrible. You're a bigot, and all this kind of garbage, I guess, is a good way of putting it. In that, um, and then they turn around and do the exact same thing. They don't have open borders. You have these people that are stealing chain link fences and any form of roadblocks they can possibly get to to establish borders, and they only allow certain people in. So again, they're just pure and utter hypocrites. Again, it's really boring to talk about, like the leftist hypocrisy, because it's so easy to find examples of. Now the right has a little bit of it as well, but it's not nearly on the same case as the left. Like again, not even close. But that's kind of the whole point here, is staggering levels of hypocrisy. And again, not only that, they are even more stringent than Trump. People like Trump want to be. They're even more stringent. So again, and any criticism of Trump on immigration, again, just sheer and utter hypocrisy, like 110%. So um, anyway, let's get to some other stuff. This is from, I don't even know what that would be. AP for Liberty on Twitter, and he says, "Yes, this is a real quote." Now, this is a quote from actually on Fox News. Now, I don't know who they're quoting exactly, but it's health experts support anti-pro. So again, health experts. That's very broad, but anyway, and the quote is, "As public health advocates, we do not condemn those gathering as risky for virus transmission. This should not be confused with a permissive stance on all gatherings, particularly protests against stay-at-home orders." Now again, they're literally saying protests, these Black Lives Matter protests, perfectly fine. But protests against the stay-at-home orders are not, they're the worst thing in the world. Again, just staggering levels of hypocrisy. And I've been saying this for over a month, and people still rag on me all the time, even though I'm clearly right. It couldn't be more obvious, that these health experts have no credibility. I don't care who you are. You could be the world's foremost leading expert. You could be the top epidemiologist in the world, infectious diseases expert in the world. And if you support these Black Lives Matter protests, you've lost all credibility. You've lost all credibility. I would take advice from someone who is like 80, 70, 80 IQ over you, because you're literally saying, I mean, number one, there's no way you're not smart enough to realize that you're wrong on the issue. They're literally saying that, I'm willing to compromise my values the minute that it becomes politically expedient. And the problem too is that anything you say before or after that can be clearly dismissed until you admit the rank contradiction and make things right. So again, I know I point this out ad nauseum, but again, there's still a lot of people that I see that somehow criticize me for pointing this out, even though it's so obvious. And again, I don't care what titles you have. If you are doing this kind of stuff, you have no credibility. It doesn't take someone who is a medical doctor or an epidemiologist to know that you are a complete and utter idiot if you support the Black Lives Matter protests, but not the the anti-stay-at-home order protests. Either you support all of it or you support none of it. And the point being is that, assuming that they are peaceful protests, which a lot of the Black Lives Matter ones aren't, and all of these stay-at-home ones are. I've yet to see one of the stay-at-home ones that has gotten violent. Um, as long as you support, you're consistent with your position. I don't care if you're necessarily wrong. Like personally, like if one of these health experts was completely against all protest, I would still disagree with them. I mean, number one, you're kind of really a bit of an authoritarian when it comes to that, but at least you're consistent. Like at least I can respect that. But these people aren't even consistent. They're inconsistent. They're consistently inconsistent, and they're authoritarian because they want to allow certain groups to protest and not allow other groups. So again, absolutely insane and crazy. And this is a good quote, somewhat unrelated, but from Six Hexenhammer 666, and it's a very good quote. I just wanted to bring it up briefly because it's a good way of evaluating yourself. Now, he says, judge a person by their enemies. Mine are human rights abusing multinational billionaire corporations and people supporting an ideology that killed 100 million or so in the last century. I feel pretty good about myself, and it's the same thing for me too. Like, I mean, I'm not this on the same level as the guy like that. He has, I think, a 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. Um, but the point being is that you can judge yourself by the people that you are enemies with. You can it is a very good way of putting it. It is a very good way of putting it. So, I mean, that's something I wanted to bring up. Now, again, the people that are most up in arms against me are people that are generally hard leftists. They're people that, again, they have no morals and ethics whatsoever. Their morals and ethics are literally rules for thee, but not for me, kind of stuff. So again, it's very good. It's very good, and it's a good way of putting it too. And this is another very good quote from Scott Adams. Now, he says, how do you solve a problem you're not allowed to discuss? And again, that's the problem with this whole Black Lives Matter, police brutality stuff, that you're not allowed to discuss the realities of it. You're not allowed to bring up the numbers. You're not allowed to bring up anything. So again, that is the problem. And again, people wonder, why does it matter to you so much? I see this constantly in comments on social media about people that disagree with this garbage and like, oh, what does it matter to you? Well, why it matters is people with a brain recognize that the solution, the proposed solution from the Black Lives Matter people, the Democrats, is not going to fix the problem. It is not going to fix the problem. If anything, it'll only make the problem worse. And what are we going to see when they realize that it only make the problem worse or it didn't fix it? Guess what? We're going to blame white racism, and we're going to keep going in circles over and over and over again. And I think it is distinctly possible that we end up with a second civil war because of it, because we have a group of people who thinks that they're being systematically oppressed when they're largely not being systematically oppressed. We have most of the oppression and the suffering is through their own, not their own fault isn't the best way of putting it, but somewhat through their own fault, and that they continuously vote for the same people over and over again and expect a different result, which is, I don't think it's the official definition of insanity, but it is an example, I guess. And that is the problem. They vote for the same policies over and over again and expect a different result. They vote for people that only care about them during election cycle, and they completely forget about them when it ends. And the problem is that these people have no incentive of fixing the problem. If the Democrats fix the problem, if the black community magically, cut their poverty levels in half, cut their criminality levels in half, all the bad stuff in half, and doubled all the good stuff, Democrats would lose a ton of votes, a ton of votes. So they have every reason under the sun to not fix the problem. And look at how well they're doing like right now. Like look at some of these, look at the Pelosi's of the world. Look at these kind of people. They are people that have multi-million dollars, some of them even tens of millions of dollars in net worth. What incentive do they have to fix your problem? Like seriously, what incentive do they have? They've literally enriched themselves through not fixing the problem. So why in the world would they fix it? And the people who are the up and comers they clearly notice it and say like, hey, if we just prolong the problem and pretend to care about it at every election, we can enrich ourselves, and all we have to do is repeat the same talking points over and over again and not actually do anything. and it's sad. I really feel sorry for these people, but I'm starting to lose my sympathy. I'm really starting to lose my sympathy, and for the simple reason that they blame the problem on stuff that isn't actually the problem, and their solution is more of the same. So again, and this is the reason why most people disagree too, is that they're losing sympathy for people because they're offering up solutions that may not be perfect, but they're better than what we've tried so far and what the black community's tried, and it just falls on deaf ears. And that is why people are so mad right now, mainly the white people. But even the black people that are awake, like the Candace Owens of the world, the Brandon Tatums, those kind of people. Um, so the last thing I wanted to talk about here is a tweet, a story from the BBC, and Ezra Levant responded very well. And that the BBC says 27 police officers injured during a largely peaceful anti-racism protest in London. And Ezra Levant puts it in a good way and says, "This is such a masterful sentence. Only a state broadcaster could have published it." And again, it's very true that how in the world does 27 police officers get injured in a protest and you still call it peaceful? Like, what in the world are you talking about? Now, again, these are the same people that were calling the people that were protesting in the state capitol in Michigan with their guns violent, even though they literally committed no violence whatsoever. Not even they didn't hit anyone, they didn't loot, they didn't riot, they didn't do anything. They were just standing there with guns, which is code for, again, the left lives in a world where beating people who disagree with you politically isn't violence, but saying a mean word is violence, or peacefully protesting with your gun, exercising your First and Second Amendments and all at once, that's violence. That's violence, according to them. So again, these people live in, they're literally paranoid, delusional, like beyond tinfoil hat wearing level of paranoia and craziness going on here. Like again, the left constantly rags on people like Alex Jones, but these people make Alex Jones look perfect, like perfect. Even though he does say some crazy stuff, but again, they're absolutely insane, like absolutely insane. Like if you believe that peacefully, again, is by default peacefully exercising your First and Second Amendment rights is violence, and saying mean words is violence, but violently looting and injuring police officers and killing your own people and burning down low-income housing units and black-owned businesses is not violence and doesn't need to be condemned. Like, you live in a crazy world, like literal, like flat earth people are less crazy than you. Like, seriously, that is not hyperbole. So yeah, that's what I wanted to bring up. Last thing here. So anyway, if you liked the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email, got linked in the description. Again, appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last couple things, as always, check me out on Twitter if you haven't already. Check me out on BitChute. All the links are in the description, so you can find them all there.